Hello viewers, welcome to Hagwaran Media YouTube channel. I am Suleiman Bukhari. We bring you a very interesting story of Abdirahman Ali. He has an extraordinary story, especially the early years of his life. He has lost his both parents barely while he was 1 year old, and from there life has been very difficult for him. We'll be learning more about how life has been for him and also the experiences that he has gained in living such a difficult life. Abdirahman Ali, welcome to the program.
Thank you for hosting me on your channel today. It's my pleasure.
We are equally thankful for you giving us this opportunity and your time. Abdirahman Ali, let's begin this interview by telling us a bit history about your life, starting when you were born, if you remember the year and the place, and how life was during those days.
To begin with, my name's Abdirahman Muhammad Ali, officially. Those are my names at birth, but I'm popularly known for my nickname as Gaucho-Central. I am a young man who is now rising to a stardom. My story is not kind of rags to riches, but an aspiration that this life is all about journey, and being a street kid, a parentless kid, having slept on the streets, and now I'm here working as a contingent worker in one of the tech companies. So to briefly tell my story, my childhood upbringing was never good. It is more of emotional, at the same time an aspiration. It's a resilient story. So to start with my early life, I was born in Mandera, born by parents. I lost my parents when I was at an infancy age. At the age of 3 months, I lost my mother. In 1 year, again, I lost my father. So I was under the care of my uncle, who too died while I was in primary school, at the early beginnings of my elementary school. So basically, we get to know, I'll share with you.
After you lost your uncle, who took the responsibility of raising you, what happened next?
After I lost my uncle, I was in primary school, a very young man. From there, what happened was like I completely went to the streets. I spent several days without food. I slept on the cold, on the corridors along the streets of Epicentral. That is where we call Bula Central in a location called Bula Jamuria in Mandera, in northern Kenya, an area populated by Somalis, Kenyan Somalis. So life was not easy. I underwent a lot of difficulties. There were challenges.
Sorry for interrupting you, Abdirahman. We would like to know what drove you to the streets.
It is basically negligence because I was a kid. I was under the care of my uncle. He died, so nobody had to take care of me. So I had to look for my own means to survive in the village. So I lived. That's how I ended up on the streets. Being at the care of nobody.
I guess you were 5 years old when you lost your uncle. So how was your studies?
My studies I was in primary school. By then, the schools were free. Primary schools were free. I happened to be a beneficiary of the free primary education, courtesy of the third president of Kenya, the late Moi Kibaki. So, having went to a primary school that was free, I used to go to school for some days. I used to miss sometimes. I remember because I had no books, I had no uniform. I remember at times I dropped out of school for 2 terms. But again, through the generous contribution and the willingness of friends, I went back to school, joined them at 3rd term. I missed the 1st term and 2nd term. I joined them at 3rd term at Boys Town Primary School. That's where I attended for my primary education, Mandera Boys Town Primary School. being on the street, being, I'm a very known household name in Mandera Gaucho-Central. People have known me for the wrong reasons. I was a young kid, but people could say where are his parents? Why is this person on the street? Why is he a disturbing, element in the village? Because by then, the Somali communities, how they grow. Like once they see you, having hairstyle and you dress fancy, they'll say you are kinda destroying the youth in the society, because they might see you as a bad element. Then in that stigmatization, I ended up on the street. Having been on the street for 4 years, finally I managed to finish class 8. When I finished my primary, that's when my cousin brother intervened. He intervened, he took me to high school. I was from high school, then I was under his care. I was under his care for 4 years, from Form 1 to Form 4. By then, life had changed. My cousin brother is a very known guy, he's a senior educationalist, now working with the county government. He's a chief officer. I'm very grateful for him. But that's when my life really changed, from the street to now being under the custody of a cousin. I was well fed for. My fees was scattered by him. He gave me shelter. He provided everything for me. Actually, he was there for me when I needed him most. That's how my life changed.
I would like to take you back to when you were in primary school. How was the wife of your uncle used to treat you?
My aunties were my uncle had 2 wives. Then my aunties were never good, because as a kid I come from the Quranic school. I have to go again to school in my elementary school. There you come, you find there is food at home. Food is being cooked, but nobody is there to give you. My uncle believes that I'm given the best life, but there is nothing actually I was given by my aunties. And there's even a Somali adage that says an aunties are never good. So my aunties were never good. They were they introduced even me, they used me for the wrong use, because they had to send me to expose me to some physical work, like maybe looking for water, collecting the garbage. That wasn't I was a kid by then, a kid who hasn't had a breakfast or a dinner. At the same time, you expose him to, you exploit him to do other things that is beyond his capacity.
Abdirahman, children that are raised by their aunts usually complain of beating and other harassment. Is your story same with such people?
Yes, typical example. I serve as a living example to that scenario, where my aunts are never kind. They mistreat the children that are under their care. That's actually aunties. Whether they are foster aunties, whether they are married whether they are foster, or maybe let's say they are your aunties who are married to your uncle or your stepmothers. That's what happens actually, is true.
Then how has that affected your performance in school and also in the Quranic schools?
Okay, that one really impacted on my education, because to be honest, I was a very dull kid, both in primary for school and in the Quranic studies also. As in, what I mean is, when I was in primary, there was nobody to trace your educational, maybe you had a certain activity to achieve during the day. In the school, you are given some books and notes and assignments. Nobody is there to ask you, where have you gone with your studies? What do you need? What educational materials you need? So it greatly impacted me, because I sometimes had to miss classes, both in the Quranic school and in the secular. Going to classes late, and when you get to classes late, you'll be punished. So I had to end up going to the forest, to the riverbanks. That's where we used to spend, because I had friends who also many of them were neglected by parents. and others, the parents were not like, they were not under the care of parents. Basically, parents were looking for provisions for them. Maybe the mother sells a kiosk, the mother sells she has shops in town. So those kids, they believe that the kids, once they eat, they'll go to school. So those are the kind of friends I happen to have them in the rivers, in the forest, on the streets. So we became good friends, and that's how we took our friendship. From there to date, we are good friends, even if they never met on live, but we still have that bond of friendship.
I'm curious to know, how was your relationship with the children of your stepmother?
My aunties, they never had kids. I was the youngest by then, and my uncles, his children were all grown up. They were not growing in the same house with me. They were not there, others were working. So that is what exposed me to being neglected and mistreated, because there were no other children in the cottage I grew up.
Then you joined secondary school. You said Mandera Secondary School.
Mandera Secondary School. I studied Mandera Secondary School for my high school education. And my high school life was best. It's only that I was a criminal in school. Being a teenage, adolescence was just kind of disturbing. But my cousin brother, I was under his care, by then had really provided for me. He took me to the best school by then, Mandera Secondary School. That's one of the professional schools in northern Kenya, a very giant, very known school, who had produced many scholars that are known in this country, the likes of Ahmed Nasir, and the former chief CEC, former cabinet secretary, who is now vying as governor in Mandera County, Jari.
At that early age, were you feeling that you were mistreated, and then your life was somehow different from how other kids were living?
Yeah, the difference was actually, there's a big difference. We should say that other kids had privileges, more privilege than us, because, like, when I say us, I mean me and the rest of who we've been in the street. We were in the street together. So the difference were, like, they were cared for, they were given clothing, they were given shelter, they were given care, they were taught good manners. For me personally, I taught everything by myself. I learned everything, whether the bad or the good. I learned everything, every vices I picked up from the streets. And that's what's now helping me today, currently. So I entirely believe the streets was my home.
Did you complain to anyone, especially neighbors, other relatives, how your aunt was treating you?
I never had anyone to complain to, because nobody came to my help. But I had few neighbors who used to help me. They feed me. They used to feed me sometimes, but I never personally went to reach out to them for help.
Then you finished your high school studies?
Yes, I finished my high school studies, came to Nairobi. I just boarded a bus, came to Nairobi with nobody, because I had cousins who lived in Nairobi, but they never picked my call. They never wanted me to be at their home. I decided just to come to Isili, pick up my old group. We were friends. I had a peer group. We grouped. We were all grown-ups. We were friends from the same village. We schooled together. Then we just formed one group. Then we hustled, ended up on the streets. We were trolled for being on the wrong side. Like, by then there was a superpower gang. Those were youths.
Before the superpower, who paid your ticket for the journey to Nairobi, and what kind of belongings did you come with?
We just only had one bag with few pieces of clothes. And the bus fare by then, I think it was 3,000 from Mandera to Nairobi. And by then 3,000 we could not afford. So what we used to do was, like, we were a very known group, very bad elements in society. When we say bad, we were not criminals, but kinda, you can understand, just teenagers growing and being, like, adolescence is hitting on them. We were mostly violent, but we were not criminal group. So, like, we used to, like, those people, those staffs working at the bus, on the transport industry, they knew us, they knew our village. So they used to say, like, these children from this Gaucho-Central area, they don't pay. So that's how we used to board the buses. We never paid anything for the buses. But now we are adults, we are grown up, we should pay when we respect them. And we thank them for their generosity.
Why did you decide to come to Nairobi? What were you looking for?
Our story is different because personally mine is totally different, because I believe when many have come to Nairobi from Northeastern, they came here with a purpose, either for education, either for work, and for some other valid reasons. But my case is purely different. I really don't know what I came for Nairobi, but we knew we are a group and we should go to Nairobi with having no reason to say like you're going to Nairobi for that reason. And we ended up on the streets of Nairobi, and we've been a very household name in Sili. People have misquoted us, people have really complained against us because of how we dress and how we behave on the streets. We were a group, and then the superpower gang was there. So on a several time, we were actually reported to the police. We had confrontations with the law enforcement. We had few friends who were also in the police, so they used to protect us. Whenever we are arrested, they were there to bail us out.
Life in the city is not an easy life. You have to pay rent and also food. So who was there during those times?
And nobody was there. We were a group. We had only friends. We rely on friends because personally, I never had any family person to reach out to for help or to ask him rent, or to ask him upkeep or food. So I had to rely on my friends to help me in terms of rent and what we eat, because we were one group. We rented a house, we sleep in the same room, we share the same meal, go to the same hotel, share a meal on a table. Like we were basically, there was a brotherhood in that group. We were a group.
If there's a picture on the kind of room that you were living in, what you had in that room, beds and other essential things that everyone needs to have in his or her room.
We lived in a decent room. That house is very known. It is called Nescafe. We were the one who gave that house that name. It's very popular in Isili. It's known Nescafe because whoever sees that house will say like, people who occupy this building, they are those criminals, but we were not criminals. So because people used to say the kids from Gaucho-Central lives here. So, and we were those boys who lives there. What happened was, in our room, we lived in a decent room, a bed sitter. We had a TV, we had a Wi-Fi, we had a sound system, we had hoovers, and we have beds. So actually we lived a good life, but that was what we provided for ourselves because we had friends. We had to call our friends who were in the diaspora to send us money to survive in this city. And that's how we bought all those amenities. And we were living actually a good life. But
how many years were you in that life?
I was in that life was for close to 4 years. From there, our group, we were disbanded because one of us actually, and his thinking was, and his idea was actually pretty well. He came with an advice that we should disband this group and everybody look for a living on his own. Because we can no longer live together when every time we are being treated as criminals. We are being reported to the police, and we know that by then they are an outlawed group in Sili. We had to even sometimes clash with those groups. We used to know each other, but we had different ideologies. They were criminals, we weren't criminals. So when the group was disbanded, one of a friend came to me, he advised me, he told me just call your cousin, tell him you want to study college. So I went to University of Nairobi, did a diploma in procurement. From there I finished the diploma, I pursued a degree in Bachelor's of Commerce. I could not raise the fee. Unfortunately, I dropped out of the college. So now, from there, I tried to maneuver around Nairobi, hustling, and secured a job with my diploma. And currently, As I speak, I am a contingent worker working with one of the giant tech companies doing a content moderation here in Nairobi.
Abdirahman, what is that one thing that you have experienced and you did not wish your young self to go through?
Actually, parentless, being parentless and never having siblings or maybe a good family member to take care of you. When I was a kid, I thought like, this is the time I learn now of, and I even hear of suicidal thoughts. This is the time I just come and learn like this suicide. But during my childhood life, I never knew about suicide. So I was in a verge of committing a suicide by then, if I knew there was suicide. So I will never want any kid out there who is a parentless, who is orphan, and I advise them not to do anything of that sort, but I can sympathize with you. I feel with you guys, and I just want you guys to listen to my story. It might inspire you. There is a life after every stage. Just work hard, be focused, move on, and I'm sure, be disciplined. Never fall on drugs, never fall on a criminal, never be a friend to a criminal person. Just life will, hope for the better, and life will be okay.
You told us that you lost your parents while you were barely 1 year old. Where were your siblings? Do you have siblings, and where were they?
Yes, I came to learn that I had siblings when I was actually in Nairobi, when I was old enough. I'm yet to hit the 30-year bracket age, but what I have seen in life actually, it's like I'm a 60-year-old person, doubles of my age. That is because of the struggles I underwent in life. Being parentless at a young age, you have to sleep on the streets, grow up on the streets, learn from the streets. Actually, in that that hardcore life has really taught me to mature myself and to believe that I'm way above my age. So on that point of siblings, I came to learn that I had siblings when I was mature enough. But as we speak today, we have contacts. But how do you say like this siblinghood when you know this person, you never grew up together? You learned that there is a brother who is older than you or a sister who is older than you, but you cannot reach them out for help because they might even feel like you are not mutually, bonding as one family member.
When you learned about that you have siblings, what was the first thing that you did?
Actually, it never. I wasn't surprised. It was just anything. It wasn't that surprising scenario. I just heard them. I said, it's good, well and good if I have siblings. But I said, how do I now? My instincts wouldn't tell me that I should actually accept them as siblings because I know even them, they don't feel the same for me because we grew up in different places under different counties. So for me, honestly, it didn't surprise me. It was just as normal as anything else.
Have they gone through the such life that you have went?
I believe they too underwent the same life because I can quote from my case and from my angle of point. They too underwent. Maybe they are ladies. They might have even been exposed and underwent the worst in life than me. Because I am a young man, because mostly I was on the street, but a lady cannot end up in the streets. So she has to live in that cottage, even if she's mistreated, to which extent. So I really feel for them, I can feel for them, but it's God's decision.
None of you took the effort to better your relationship and build a strong bond, brother and sister's bond. Why?
I say that's just by circumstance, and I think we cannot correct, because I believe if you are my brother or my sister, for us to have a sibling, that strong bond of being family and brotherhood, it should come from at a point where I know at a young age when I know that I have a brother or a friend, I have to see you. You should be there to wipe my tears. I should also do the same for you. But if you've never been there in life, it's a bit difficult to convince someone that you have a brother at an old age.
If you look back at your life, what do you think would have been different if both of your parents were alive?
I believe if my parents were alive, so many things could have been different, because one of them being like, we could have all grown up in the same house. They could have been that family bond, that love. We could have actually been there for each other, for better, for worse. Family always matters. That is, there's an adage that says, family, like they say, blood is thicker than water. But for my case, being parentless, that I'll rule out that one. That I choose friendship over family. So I don't agree with that, and I don't accept that adage that says blood is thicker than water.
If you reflect on your life, the hardships that you have gone through, do you think that has prepared you well for the life?
Going
for
through
a better life?
Yeah, going through that life actually has really taught me a lot. And I am someone who is aspiring to be a very useful person in the society, and I have bigger dreams. And actually, I just want to be a philanthropic. What I mean is, like, I have a plans that once, like, with the help of God and God willingly, I should one day erect or get a property in the place, in the streets I grew in Mandera, a home that can care for those parentless kids, so that they won't undergo the same life I underwent. So I have that plans for the parentless kids. I will always feel that their life is miserable being parentless. So I should one day maybe build a children's home in the streets I grew, the streets of Gaucho-Central. That's where I got my name from. I am Gaucho-Central, popularly known for that nickname, because Gaucho is a Brazilian name. I was given by a friend when I was in primary school, just class 2 in my elementary school. Central is the place I grew, the village, the street I grew, being parentless, with no siblings, with nobody as a family friend. So I grew up in that street, so that's where I picked my street from, and I believe that place has a permanent spot in my heart.
Your advice to people who are now raising orphan children?
So my parting shot as we conclude, and my appeal to the families, to the many and majority foster families that are taking care of orphan and parentless children, I tell them, like, they are two people, they are human beings. They never chose to be parentless. It is circumstance. It is God's decision. We should be kind to those children that are at our homes. We should care for them. We should give them the best life, just and treat them and accept them as our kids. Because I believe we love our kids, but those that are not our kids, and that is wrong. I am a real example. I grew up and underwent that life, but it wasn't, I'll really say that's a sad story. So my fellow Somali communities, be kind to those kids you are taking care of, even if they're not your children. Give them the best life, educate them well, teach them good manners, so that they'll tomorrow be a better people. Those might be future presidents. They might be useful doctors. So I'll just call out for this and give this as my advice, that they should be cared for and treat them well. Just accept them as your own children. How you feel to treat your kid, extend the same to those kids you are taking care of and the parentless. If you don't have any kid, those who you see on the streets, be kind to them and be nice to them. Just help them where necessary.
Also, what will you advise to those children who are orphans and now under the care of relatives or foster parents?
Those children, I'm sorry, I feel the pain you're feeling. I am one of you. We are one family as parentless. but I'm little grown up now and in a better position than you. Don't lose hope. Be disciplined, focused in life. Just aim high, hope for the best. Yeah, you will one day achieve what you dream.
Thank you, Gaucho, for sharing your history with us.
It's my pleasure, bro.